My name is Templeman. I work for Public Health Suffolk. I've been invited to open the day for you today. So if you can be patient and kind and can work with me in getting through the next few minutes together, 20 minutes or so, I can promise you that what follows from me will have you interacted and engaged for the whole of the day. So I have the necessary opening bit to do. So I'm sure you would have got a copy of the programme for today. This actual event, as I'm sure you are aware, every year Suffolk Family Carers and the Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust, they provide a variety of forums, and so this year they decided that as part of the Carers Week that they would put on this particular forum relating to dual diagnosis. So from the programme, if you have a copy of that, you'll be able to see that a little bit later we will have a really interesting talk about why do people with mental health problems use drugs from Dr. Russell Norton. And then after that will be a colleague of mine called Renato Massetti, who will be sharing with us a really, really engaging talk about legal highs. And then later on today we'll be looking at substance misuse in the family, because it's not just the individual who has problems with addiction, it has a ripple effect and affects everybody all around them. And also some colleagues from British Red Cross, Jeanette and Nigel, will be sharing with you what to do in respect of an overdose. And then later this afternoon, Bev and Sue from Suffolk Family Carers, they will be sharing their own personal experiences of helping somebody with their addiction and also mental health problems as well. And finally, Glenn will be from Iceni. He will be speaking a little bit more about what Iceni do here in Ipswich, and we'll be looking at addiction, the whole family. So that's kind of a very brief overview of what your day is going to include today. So just to give you a little bit more information about who I am and what do I do and what is my role within all of this. Just to give you a little bit of background information about me, I trained as a nurse. I was a state registered nurse and then went into mental health nursing. At the time, and that's in Suffolk, at the time there was a lot of, we had East and West Suffolk Health Authority, and there was a lot of pressure put on East Suffolk Health Authority, of which Ipswich was part, to provide services for substance misuse. The local feeling around that was that where we have no service, there's no need for one. And I was just sharing with Russell before we started that I'd my own GP at the time, who will remain nameless, he has since retired, bless him. I spoke with him about it, and I just said, how do you feel about a new service being set up in Suffolk for people with drug and alcohol problems? And he said, well, in my opinion, you know, where there's no service, there's no need for one. And he said, I'm quite proud of the fact that I don't have anybody on my caseload who's got an alcohol problem. Really? Not one? And he said, no, he said, if somebody comes to me and thinks they have a problem with alcohol, I say to them, if you can drink more than me, then you've got a problem. And that was the kind of face that we were confronted with from our medical profession at the time. They thought that if we didn't have a service, then we wouldn't have to work with people and provide a range of things that was required at the time. So the regional health authority were putting a lot of pressure on East Suffolk to provide services for substance misuse, whether that be drug or alcohol. Of course, the local hospital, through their inpatient services, were providing medical services, but in terms of the community, first point of contact for people, they were non-existent. And in fact, I'm almost ashamed to say, as I was an employee of Suffolk Health Authority, the East Suffolk Health Authority were the last health authority in the whole of the UK to set up any services for drug misuse, which was quite shocking at the time, and we're talking about 1986. In 1986, we were really, as a country, at the heart of HIV and AIDS beginning to really gather momentum, and there was a lot of emphasis around providing services which would have harm reduction as its main philosophy, because the intravenous drug using community were one of the groups of people who were at highest risk. So I expressed an interest in working in the field because East Suffolk Health Authority said we've got no choice, we've got to provide a service, anybody want to do it. So I had said yes, I would really be interested in working in this. So I was seconded to London to work at University College Hospital in London and also the Bethlehem Royal and Maudsley hospitals to become a clinical nurse specialist in the field of drug and alcohol dependency nursing. Then I came back to Suffolk and started the service up, and such was the enthusiasm for the service here. I was given an office in, some of you who are Suffolk born and bred may know of a hospital, long-stay psychiatric hospital called St Audrey's Hospital out in Elton near Woodbridge, and I was in the broom cupboard with a crate, which was my desk, no phone, no paper, no pens, nothing, and there the drug services started. So from going to saying there's no service, there's no need for one here in Suffolk, within 3 months I had 30 people on caseload, and that doubled within the first 6 months. So we definitely did have a need. And we were lucky in that because we were the last health authority to set up services, there's a lot of HIV and AIDS funding available at that time, and they just primed our service. You will provide it, here's the money, get it going, there is a need. So in the space of 2 years, quite a big service grew, and that was the kind of birth of what was then called the Community Drug Team, which became a multidisciplinary team. So I've been around for a while now, so it's about 29 years ago, but in that time I've seen how services have changed, how they've evolved, but so has the drug using lifestyle and prevalence of substances within Suffolk. So alcohol has always been there as a particular problem, if you want to call it that, but in terms of drug misuse, back in the 80s, the primary drugs of use for adults were heroin and amphetamine, and in young people it was solvent abuse. You know, you can remember the days of glue sniffing and the butane gas and all things like that. Not to say they're non-existent now, but at the time they were the most prevalent concerns for us all. And then we moved on into crack cocaine using community, then it went into ecstasy, and now today we have the non-psychoactive substances, otherwise known as legal highs. We're encouraged to move away from using the term legal highs because even saying that phrase infers that it's okay to use them because it's legal. You'll hear more about that particular topic from Ren a bit later on this morning. So, we do have a few slides. I promise not to PowerPoint you to death. My present role, I'm known as a community recovery officer, and I'll explain a little bit more about my current role in a few minutes. If we just go back a little bit to 2010 is when the government introduced the drug strategy, which is reducing demand, restricting supply and building recovery, and supporting people to live a drug-free life. That document there and that strategy was what set the basis for the next 4 or 5 years for providing services. It also was there for police and officials to say how could they reduce the supply of substances, so it's customs and the police, everybody involved in that. And it was really a directory of saying to you, this is what the services must look like, this is the shape that they must be, and responsibility for who should be doing what. At the time, nationally, there were what's called drug and alcohol action teams, and they were given government funding to then be able to commission local services to provide services in the local community. So I worked then for the DAT, the Drug and Alcohol Action Team, and then in 2012 what happened was that Public Health then left the National Health Service and moved into the local authority. So Public Health now is part of Suffolk County Council, and they were then given the money as opposed to the DATs. The DAT within Suffolk, whose main base was at Endeavour House in the County Council building, they were absorbed into the Public Health team, Public Health Directorate there. So the commissioners were still there, so all that experience and knowledge was still there. It was just that the funding was distributed in a different way. Last year, all up until, from 2011 until last year, up until March of this year, services for drugs and alcohol were provided by 6 different organisations in the county. And last year we went out to tender for a new service, and that came into fruition, has been delivered from the 1st of April of this year. And that contract was awarded to Turning Point. And the service, there's quite a lot of change in that they are a single service provider, and it is now an integrated service. So rather than having to go to one service if you have problems related to alcohol and another for drugs, one for adults, one for young people, it's all under the one umbrella of Turning Point being the main provider. So as you can appreciate, we are only now into June, so Turning Point have only really been here locally for the last couple of months. A lot of that's not a whole new band of new people coming in. It is a new way of working, yes, but a lot of the staff who were in the other services have been tupied over to work within the new organisation. As part of that contract, Turning Point identified key partners that they would be working with, and so ICENI Ipswich are one of those key partners, as are Suffolk Family Carers, and also another organisation called Air Sports. They're currently coming from London. They haven't been in Suffolk before, so that's a very new part of it all for us. I'll just skip through the next couple of slides. So within public health, there are 4 different teams, although we have 2 lots of health protection. One of them is really to do with the doctors and researchers in public health, and the other group of people are those who are practitioners and who are involved in working in the local community. So my role now, the previous slide, if I can go back, no, don't worry about it. The other document was which was up there, which is called The Whole Person Approach to Recovery, and that became my Bible. That came out shortly after the National Drug Strategy, and it is an absolute fabulous toolkit. Although it came out in 2011, it's something which I still use all the time now. It is an absolute fantastic framework to show you exactly what is meant by recovery. It's published by the Royal Society of Arts, RSA. So if you look at a whole person approach to recovery, I can highly recommend that document. It's very easy reading. You might think, oh my God, what's all this? But it is really, really, as soon as you start reading it, it's very, very engaging and explains so much. So in terms of looking at substance misuse, we hear a lot about the word recovery nowadays. Recovery, what do we mean by recovery? Recovery is an individual, person-centred journey and involves 3 overarching principles: well-being, citizenship and freedom from dependence. So therefore, whatever we do in terms of commissioning services, providing services, we have to put the individual at the heart of it all. And we must be able to provide a range of services and tailored packages of care and support. And so often can be a stumbling block is that we have care plans and we try and make the person fit the care plan. It's very, very important that the care plan fits the person, that it is the other way round, and that it is their individual needs which are looked at all the time. And so that recovery, the first couple of lines at the top there is a straight lift from the drug strategy. This, I don't expect you to read this by any means at all. But one of the things which we speak about quite a bit is the hold that a substance might have on somebody, whether that be drugs or alcohol. And so it is their desire, the fix, the escape, the buzz that those substances might bring. And then when we're looking at the recovery of that, it's when they then have to make a plan, they have to make that decision for the rest of their life, breaking the circle. That will involve the treatment and the care package that goes with that, but there's also the baggage as well, which they have to let go of. And so within all of that is the actual struggle that individuals go through. They do have a tendency to relapse. They have to make the decision to recover, but recovery is possible. You might, oh my goodness, you might think, what on earth you got up there? Don't worry about it, please. Don't strain your eyes to read it. Treatment is but one part of a person's road to recovery. As soon as a person enters a treatment service, whether that be Turning Point, ICNI, whoever, that is their first step on the road to recovery. And we speak a lot about recovery journeys. It can so often be one step forward and two steps back, but they are steps, and they are steps that will eventually lead them to that overall recovery. But in treatment is but one part of that recovery journey, and both in the National Drug Strategy and also in the document I referred to from RSA, it speaks about a person needs to be able to have a bank of assets to enable them to achieve recovery and to sustain it. And what this picture here just shows you, at the middle, it's got recovery capital. That's the phrase which is used a lot, and all the different circles around there are different things that a person is recommended that they have as an asset. So it could be things like housing, somewhere to live, a job, the local community. It can be a sense of belonging. Some of them need to address their emotional health. They do need to address their physical and mental health. And so the list goes on. Within a person's recovery capital assets, there are things that are desirable and there are things which are essential for a person to be able to recover. And this isn't just applicable to people with substance misuse problems, this is also applicable to people with mental health problems, and therefore in the middle of that, where the two come together, are those people with dual diagnosis problems as well. Whilst I'm speaking with you and sharing all the information from a substance misuse point of view, I can also confirm that there's a huge recovery agenda for the mental health side, and they are very, very similar. That isn't my field of work at the moment, but it is an area where I work very closely in partnership with. I know that amongst the audience today there are several people here who do work in the field of mental health and who will be able to share with you over coffee and lunchtime, I'm sure, in the other foyer there, all about the recovery agenda for mental health in Suffolk. So from the essential requirements for recovery capital, there's three specific categories, which is personal, social and community. So the first one, in looking at personal recovery capital, it is essential that somebody has somewhere to live. Their physical and mental health needs must be addressed, and there should be a purposeful activity to their life. If you can appreciate somebody who's been addicted to substances for quite a long period of time, what is their normal day like? It's how they wake up. They often have to have some of that substance to just start them off for that day. For alcohol, you are able to buy that quite easily, but if you're talking about someone who's addicted to heroin or any other illegal substances, they've got to source that supply during the day, and that can often lead to them having to commit crime during the day. And it isn't just a Monday to Friday job, it's a 7-day-a-week job. So their whole lifestyle is around getting their next supply. So you're asking somebody to change their whole way of life if they want to recover. So it's a purposeful activity which doesn't involve shoplifting, which doesn't involve burglary, etc., etc. The second one I mentioned is social recovery capital, and that's where it is very, very important that they can build peer support. When people are journeying in their recovery, they are with a whole drug-using community. They have to leave that community behind, or they have to be working with somebody who is also on their journey of recovery so that they can support each other. And friends and family are an essential part of that. So often we talk about the individual user, but the impact their drug use or their alcohol use has had on the rest of the family is phenomenal. And it is very difficult, painful and emotional in working with friends and family as well. For people who are using the substances, a lot of the time they're unaware of the damage in which they're causing because of the effect that the substance is having, but it's the family who can see what's going, and they are the ones who are scarred, and they are the ones who are needing help and support. It also speaks about community capital. I've already mentioned to you right at the beginning of what I've said about the stigma around substance misuse in Suffolk way back in the 1980s. There still is a certain amount of stigma, not just for substance misuse but also for people with mental health problems as well. But we are able to talk about it now rather than it be whispered behind closed doors and hidden. People are now able to discuss it with each other and to be open about it and to support people wherever they can. It's also important for service users to be able to develop links within the community. A phrase that I often use quite a bit in my role is that helping them to integrate and not be isolated. And I think that's very important when you're looking at dual diagnosis, because a person, even they might go through this very long journey of recovery, but if they are doing that, are isolated from the rest of the community, or they are isolated from their family, they might say, we've had enough, it's too late. That isolation can lead to depression in itself. So developing links with the community, I think that's the most important part in helping them to integrate and not isolate. And it can also be achieved through them undertaking different activities and also volunteering. Nearly finished, bear with me. Okay, so coming back then to my role and what do I do now? I am a community recovery officer, and as I've already mentioned, that the treatment service alone cannot provide all of that recovery capital that I've just talked to you about. So our overall aim is to help somebody complete their recovery journey, but not only complete it, but to sustain it. And we have to try and help them as much as we possibly can to achieve that. So one of the things I did was to set up recovery networking forums across the county. We have 3 of them, East, West and Waveney. The East one takes place tomorrow. They have taken a while to grow, but the recovery forums are the beginnings, well they were the beginnings, they're now quite well established, of partnership working. And it can be partnership working between any business, any organisation, any voluntary and community group. So what are the aims of the forums? The first aim is to have news from Public Health England, also from Public Health Suffolk, and our commissioned service providers. So within that we hear about what is happening locally. So Turning Point and any other organisation say, have you heard that this is happening in this part of Ipswich or this part of Woodbridge? Emerging trends. It will also speak about service developments. We've now started this new group which will provide this. So we have opportunity to discuss developments, look at issues together, to explore joint working activities with local partners. In terms of issues, just to give you a very quick example, in March, our first forum for this year, they're held every 3 months. One of our colleagues from Ipswich Borough Council, it had been brought to her attention the amount of drug-related litter which was around in Ipswich at the time, within the parks and within different roads. And so a wider group of people helped her to conduct a research project just to find out exactly the extent of what was going on out there. And then from that, conclusions were drawn, and to summarise that very quickly, in Ipswich Town Centre you may well see, as you're driving through, really, really big yellow sharps disposal bins now. For a period of time at the end of the last contract with our previous providers, the needle exchange service had to come to a halt. And so this problem of drug-related litter in Ipswich then emerged even more. So Turning Point will be reinstating the needle exchange service very soon, if they haven't already. I've been off for 6 weeks, and so in coming back I haven't caught up with everything since they started here, but I know that that's very much a priority for them. But for the wider population, we now have these very large needle disposal bins around the town. And my colleague Sally, who I spoke about at the beginning of this, She will be here at lunchtime today and will be here this afternoon, and she wasn't able to send it to me before today, but I have got a map of all the areas of where these large bins are, if anybody wants to know. She's sending it to me. So through the forums we have presentations. I told you that there were three forums. The first presentation that we have, they are only 15 minutes long at each one. It is a topic which is applicable to the whole of the county. And the second one will be from a local service provider who will look at a local topic or a service development or a project that we may like to do together. The most important part of the networking forum is the lunch. One, the food is always pretty good, isn't it, Nigel? You're a regular attendee, not for the lunch, in case it's bad. But that is what the forums are all about. It is a networking opportunity, so to be conducive to that environment, a networking lunch is a key part. I've already mentioned that they're held quarterly. Then in between the meetings, I act as a coordinator to send out news to each of the forum members via email to everybody. Above the three forums, there's one county group who meet together, so therefore there's a transfer of information between the three up to the county one. But also from the county group, they can then advocate to Public Health England, Public Health Suffolk, if there are particular matters of importance that they wish to share. So currently in the East, our membership is 120 people, which represent 46 different organisations, of which, just to give you an indication, we've got 9 different housing organisations, 10 different voluntary and community groups, and we also have recovery champions who are people who've been through recovery and are now being sustained in that. So we have quite a lot of service user input as well, and they also can represent a wider recovery group of people and feed into the forum for us. One of the other things that we do is, in addressing stigma attached to substance misuse, is that we have health promotion events, and on the 24th of June there will be a health fair in Ipswich Town Centre on Cornhill, where there will be a lot of the partner organisations involved in activities and news on that day, and there will also be quite a big presence from Air Sports London. They will be coming and they will be sharing with the wider population what they're going to be doing, first of all in Ipswich and then county-wide. And also to let you know, one of the other key projects which the forum are looking at the moment is to develop a recovery hub in Ipswich. We're going to be taking over, well we are taking over, a disused pub in Ipswich, and it will become a recovery hub. It will be run by service users, people in recovery. It will be a music venue. It will be a public-facing cafe. There's going to be lots of exciting things happening there. I can't give any more information at the moment. Watch this space. There will be a launch a bit later on this year. So the second thing that I set up was what's called the Recovery Grant Scheme. This is a scheme whereby funding of anything between £500 and £10,000 can be given to any local organisation, voluntary, community group, whoever, who would like to deliver a project for our client group which will enhance their recovery. And the criteria to apply for that funding, they must be able to hit one of these things in the project they wish to deliver. So it must be able to either enhance their physical and mental health and well-being, so again in purple that means it's a reference to personal recovery capital, build their skills and knowledge. That's when you're really looking at around either giving them the confidence back to use the skills that they've already got in terms of employment, or to start afresh, and then some of them may never have had a job. So it's about education and skills training. Building social networks, which comes back to what I said before about integrating and not isolating. So over the last 4 years, the different types of projects that we've supported, I'm just going to hopefully not cause anyone to have never left it fit, but there's not flashing lights. These are some of the different projects which we've done. Funky Furniture project is when we have a relationship with British Heart Foundation. This was started off in Lowestoft. If you go to their charity shops, they have a huge amount of furniture which is donated, and they have to change the shop window every 6 weeks. And in doing that, if there's furniture that they've been unable to shift, they donate it to our Funky Furniture project, and the people then strip that down, paint it, and then resell it through the recovery store as Funky Furniture. We have different allotments. Farming New Ground is there's a lot of care farms in Suffolk. There's actually over 50 care farms in Suffolk who predominantly offer placements for people with mental health problems, but over recent years they've been very, very welcoming of our service user group. So they've been out driving tractors, watching lambs give birth, doing all sorts of different things that way, so we're making use of our rural community. There's lots of different projects there, but if anybody wants to know more about the Recovery Grant Scheme, please speak to me at any time and I can tell you how people can apply. If I just tell you www.healthysuffolk.org.uk, that's the public health website. If you go onto that, at the bottom of the page you'll see a section which says recovery. Click on that and it will take you through to the electronic application form. So since we set the scheme up, we've received 130 applications. The total amount of money requested has been 500,000. The panel who helped decide on what projects will be funded and not have approved 65 of those applications. So we don't approve everything, we're quite strict about some things. And we've only spent £265,000, but the amount and the number of people who've been engaged in that has been nearly 3,000 people, so that's quite a lot. So, as I said, as soon as a person steps through the door of any one of our treatment services, that is the beginning of their recovery journey. It is a very difficult field, a very challenging field for professionals to work in, and the support of staff is of paramount importance. But in doing that, we applaud our staff, we applaud the commitment, we applaud their professionalism, whether they be voluntary or whether they be a paid member of staff. But at the heart of everything that they do, which is at the heart of our forums, which is at the heart of all of our recovery, we believe that everyone can recover. Not everyone will. We don't know who. We don't know when. But we will give everyone every chance. So that's the end of my opening for you today. I hope that you will thoroughly enjoy the rest of what you hear today around dual diagnosis. Enjoy it.